Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Max Frequency Podcast. I am your host, Max Roberts, and I have the honor and privilege of returning to the show, Javed Sterritt. Hey, Javed, how's it going, man?
Hello, good. Man, you're so good at those intros. I think I said it last time, but man, it's a real craft, like just getting the roll out.
Just practice, lots and lots of shows. You can go back a long time and find not good intros. I promise they exist, and they're on the internet. um, this is what I sent you in the message. I've been thinking of a lot about your work lately. I was actually talking with Wizawet. I think you know Wiz, right? Outer Wilds Club kind of guy.
Yeah.
And then I kept thinking about it. I was like, I should just have Javed back on the show to talk about it, because you've put out a lot of videos since the last time we spoke, and it's a lot. But before we dive into all of that, I didn't tell you this up front. I did want to thank you. Discord has a feature where if your friends have synced up their Spotify, you can see what they're listening to. And one day I was like in my DMs or whatever, and I saw you were listening to music, and the art looked interesting. It was a cat with a beer can, and it was the album Greatest Hangs by Good Hangs. And the song was I Only Do Push-Ups When I'm Drunk, parentheses, drinking lonely. And I was like, that is so strange sounding, like name-wise. I was like, I've got to listen to this. And then it just hit me like this wave of nostalgia, just this type of music. I was like, oh, this album's awesome. And it only came out a couple of years ago. It's like people are still making this kind of punk, emo-y music that just, I love it. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh man, that's far out. That if I've got a feeling when my Spotify like summary, at the end of the year comes out,
Sure.
It's going to be mostly that record. Like that's been that one and another one by Bill Murray.
The comedian?
Like no. It's Bilmuri.
Okay.
I think it's supposed to be like a bit of a joke on the Bill Murray name.
Right.
It's a bit more of like a hardcore. He was like the guy that runs that band. He was one of the guitarists from Attack, which if you remember them, they were like the crabcore band with the breakdowns and stuff. But yeah, Good Hangs. That one record is just so emo, so like post-hardcore punk. Oh, it's yeah.
I described it to my friend as it reminded me of the game Emily is Away, like that era of instant messaging. But even though obviously that record wouldn't be in there, it was just like, this is something that someone on, AIM would be listening to while they're messaging their friend in high school about going to a party later or something. It's like so good.
Yeah. Well, man, it was funny because like from my own experience, I appreciate now all the new music that I can discover through Spotify. So I think for a while I was, maybe like mid-20s, I was really resistant to like letting new music in because I had my favorites. I had my favorite bands and my favorite records. They meant a lot to me. And I think the idea of everyone still creating stuff or like, I don't know, like I held my old stuff so closely. But there was a point where I'm like, I'm just going to start listening to new music. And I think when they started making those like suggestion playlists or like discovery playlists or something, I started playing them. And then I started to really open myself up to new music and new bands and realized as well that so many bands are still making really good emo punk music.
Yeah.
Like it maybe even better than what we were making 20 years ago, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Really thoughtful, really good production stuff. And yeah, so Good Hangs, that was one that stuck out to me from that discovery playlist. Was like a really plus lyrically, there's a lot of nostalgia in their lyrics too. So there's one song I watched all my friends fade out.
Yeah.
And that really stuck with me because that was one about how your friendships start to just kind of you disband a little bit as you get older and responsibilities take over, family, kids. And it's quite a sad song if you pay
it's
attention
very
to
sad.
the lyrics.
Yeah. No, it hits the same way for me.
Yeah, that was actually the first song I heard from that band, and that stuck with me. It's like, holy moly, that they're putting into words, like they're putting to music feelings that I've had for the last like 10 years. Um, so yeah, man.
Yeah, but it also just sounds like the stuff that we were listening to when we were all friends. Like we
Yeah,
were all
yeah,
listening to this music together, and now we're all
totally.
off doing our own things. It's a very good album. Uh, I like it a lot. So thank you for just casually listening to it, and thanks to Good Hangs for having very interesting names and album art, because that enticed me.
Yeah, yeah. I think all their album art is like cats doing stuff, like drawings of cats. I'm just gonna check it out now. But yeah,
The last time you were on the show was January of 23, and let's see, you had just put out Line by Line, the Majora's Mask translation documentary, started the Hyrule Journals channel, and so basically over the last 19 months, I wrote it all out, but you've done a lot. Actually, more than I thought that you had done in the last year and a half or so. You put out 5 other Hyrule Journals videos. You know, the MMORPG, which was really dope. The Snowball Effect of Journalism, which I love. People still say that it was inspired by that one cartoon, the
yeah,
Wind Waker. It's great. And then your unboxings and the notebook, all that cool stuff. And then in August, it seemed like August of 23, you joined the folks over at The Escapist. You started cranking out some really interesting stuff over there. Like even like really funky stuff like that Stratos. I totally forgot about it, but that Stratos Starfield series, when you guys were exploring what it would be like to like role play the role playing game, which was it's pretty clever.
Yeah.
Then everything and this is the part of the stuff I don't know entirely, but like everyone left The Escapist and formed Second Wind, and Second Wind blew up, huge membership push and drive and all that stuff. So you join, you're with the folks over there, and then all these Good Blood videos are coming out across both of those. You've got Sonic, Outer Wilds, Metal Gear, Alan Wake, Pokemon cards, like all this stuff. And then you're editing a lot of stuff. By my count, you've done like 18 Good Blood videos, plus whatever editing and other stuff you're doing over there. And then, of course, your latest Good Blood video, the Box Garden or Hakoniwa video, which was chef's kiss, so good. It was one of those videos that after I watched it, I was then reading some interviews about Super Mario Galaxy, and one of the devs was like, yeah, Miyamoto talks about it should be like a box garden. I'm like, no, it's everywhere. I see the box garden quote everywhere.
Yeah, it's funny, hey.
Yeah. And so you've done a lot. We both played Outer Wilds, which, by the way, first of all, great way to talk about Outer Wilds without spoiling Outer Wilds. Your video is the one I recommend to everyone.
Cool.
And then just like, what a game, dude. Holy smokes.
Far out. It's cool that you bring this up, because I think it was even just yesterday. Someone had sent me a video of I don't want to spoil it. How do we talk
so
about
hard.
it? Send me a video how to achieve this one thing a certain way. I can send you the link later.
Okay.
But it was just like, even watching a video of it, I found my heart racing. Like it was just watching this playthrough again. My heart was racing, dude. I'm like, this has such a connection. I knew I had a connection with it, but I didn't realize just how much it stayed with me. Yeah. Just watching this playthrough again, the music, the sound effects, watching them travel through these planets, far out, dude. I think it is really making me realize how maybe close to art Outer Wilds is, or the perfect execution of what a game could be, where the player is in control, and yet, but even the Hakoniwa concept, that is the almost the perfect box garden.
It is. You can't help but think of it now. Like when you go back and you look at it,
Yeah.
just like each planet is its own beautifully contained, curated thing. It's so.
Yeah.
I was telling my dad, I'm like, I've never played a game like this before.
Yeah. Where it's this pre-crafted thing where there's a story that unfolds through exploration. But it's all about leaving it up to the player to how they navigate and how they play with the pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It's man. I could gush about Outer Wilds, but maybe
yes, we
not
could.
On a podcast where spoilers are possible.
That would actually be really fun. I think that would be pretty great. Maybe someday. But I'll have to tell you how I solved a particular puzzle maybe after the show, because I think it's pretty funny in hindsight now. But
cool.
I guess before I dive into my main question that kind of sparked this whole episode, how have the last 19 months felt to you? Because when I laid it all out, I was like, dang.
Yeah. It's been a lot. Where do I start with this one? It's definitely doing something that I haven't done before. So, but the ultimate change is that I've, mainly been working in the YouTube space as a full-time thing, which was not what I was doing before.
Mm-hmm.
Before say August last year, I was still doing freelancing, working with other clients, doing video editing, design, animation for commercials, and even little documentaries, just whatever came in. But ever since the Escapist thing started and I got on there, kind of working with them at more of a full-time capacity, it's been pretty much the YouTube world full-time, which has its challenges, but and also its joys. I think it's easier to see the challenges because they feel like bigger things than joy does. Like sometimes I don't think we recognize or appreciate joy for when it's here more. It's just easier to recognize the hard times. And so when I look backwards, I see the hard times more than the joy. And the hard times are only because I'm getting pushed in ways that I haven't been pushed before, as far as how to write stuff faster. So I had my own series on the Second Wind YouTube channel, and I appreciate those challenges, but it's like, okay, how do I write things faster? How do I produce things quicker? Because now we're working for YouTube, where it has its own rule sets with algorithms and attention spans and delivering deadlines faster and whatever. So it has been challenging, and I think in a way it makes me understand the parts to production that I appreciate more. As far as and we could probably talk about this a little bit later, but I've said a few times now in other like streams that I've done, I really love the researching process,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like the video production stuff anymore. I find that stuff to be a real drag just because I know how to do it, whereas the research, the finding of the thesis, developing a through line, writing it, I love that stuff. And that's where the joy is for me. But it's also sometimes feels cramped when I have to research and write in the space of 5 days, which is really hard. My brain doesn't naturally work that way. I need to sit on something. I need to simmer and just bathe in the material until I find what the thesis is, until I find the core. And so to brute force that is really hard. And that's been one of my main struggles over the last year, is like, how do I speed up this process when my brain doesn't work that fast?
Yeah, that's hard to do things, because I've done my fair share of just like a deep dive research project, and I'll take months, years to do something.
Yeah.
And like I'm just reading and watching and just like you said, bathing in it. And then you produce the thing, and sometimes when that deadline comes of like, I need to crank this out, I find myself working more. Like you do it more and more, and I don't. Deadlines are a powerful thing, but they also suck.
Yes.
Because it's
So
like,
hard.
it's got to get out. It's got to happen. But I just wish I had more time.
Yeah, man. So many times I wish I could just clone myself so I could be researching twice as fast, or like the one half of me doing the video production and the other half just kind of refining the essay or whatever. Yeah, which is kind of a terrible thing to dream of. Like, how do I work faster? You know, like, oh, how do I work more?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like the right balance. It should be, I don't know. And maybe it too, it's like, okay, how does half of me work and the other half play with my kids?
That's where I'm at. You know, that it's. I have a 2-year-old. I want to spend. She's only 2 for so long. You know, it's how do I spend time with her? I could come out in the garage and play a game or read a paper or whatever, but it's. She's only home from daycare for so long. It's like I need to. I need to. Yes, but I want to spend time with her, and it's this really hard balance. That's why I'm up so early or up so late. It's like, well, this is the only time where it's they're asleep.
Yeah. And that's it too. Like, that's the other component is just having kids. You know, like, it's where, you know, I am locked into a routine where I need to be off the computer to do dinner and bedtime, and to drop my kids at school. You know, and so how do I squeeze all that work inside a 6-7 hour kind of bracket when school's on? And I don't want to have to work nights as well. You know, it does happen. Like, if you're a creative in the creative industry, or maybe even almost any industry, like, you just end up working nights, emails or whatever. And I like to think that it's only for a time. You know, like, maybe down the line I'll figure it out and I can be faster or outsource things better. And so I can just be with the kids more, or even just like watching a movie with my wife.
Yeah. Sometimes you're like, we'll watch a movie. And then, at least for me, I'll fall asleep. I'm so tired.
Oh, dude. And that's the reality. It's kind of, I'm not sure. I don't want to say depressing, because I think that is just the reality of life that we're not told about often. You know, like, it's, you know, we're sold so many times through the media that a happy marriage looks like this. You know, and we're in reality, when you've got kids and you're working, you're just really tired a lot, and you will fall asleep. And sometimes we'll be on the couch and we'll both be on a laptop, not talking to each other, but at least we're in the same room. Like, we're in each other's company. That's what it looks like sometimes. That's what, like, being in a relationship looks like.
That's the day-to-day. That's the stuff you don't see on Instagram or YouTube or what have you. It's, you squeeze in what you can. We just, actually, today is our 7-year anniversary, but we celebrated it earlier this week.
Oh, man.
So
Congrats.
that was nice. We were able to leave Eloise with the grandparents and go out of town for a concert and stuff. So that was fun. But later this week, it'll probably be, are you awake enough to watch 23 minutes of a show?
Yeah.
Well, it's give and take, balance all around. So all of this, you've got your videos on the Good Blood channel, the Hyrule Journals channel, and Second Wind / Escapist for a spell there. And I just started wondering, I wrote this back when your Metal Gear Untold video came out on the Escapist, which was kind of like your big debut working with the team, I think, if I remember it correctly.
So, correction, that was Metal Gear Legend.
Legend.
That was the
Untold is the new one.
Yeah.
All right. My bad. Yes, that's slightly...
Totally fine.
Dyslexia strikes again. Legends over at the Escapist. I wrote this at the time because I didn't understand you were hired there or whatever, but I wrote that the video was that this is the good blood style I love, but interestingly published on the Escapist YouTube channel. I'm happy they hired Javed and let him do his thing. Curious to see where this series go. A year later, we know where it's going. My question for you is, like, what is a good blood video to you? You have the videos spread out across the place, but they're all unequivocally Javed. So, like, what is a good blood video to you?
Hmm. I would love to know what you mean about a video being Javed. What do you mean? Can I ask that? What do you mean by
Yeah,
that?
it's your video style editing production. You are, to me, an After Effects wizard. Just the stuff you can you pull off there is great. And it's those. When I think of a Javed video, I think of that table you have out in your office, that wood table.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The shots of the Game Boys or the magazine. You're adding a practical, tangible effect to things that are so digital. And I listened to our last episode just for a little bit, and you even talked about how you like recreated a CRT shot, but you went through such lengths to make it seem as real and practical as possible. So there's a real character and tangibility and just like texture to everything. And it's thinking about things outside of just their context, as you usually do talk about video games, but it's how does that interact with the rest of the world, the audience in particular, and other pieces of art? Because your Last of Us video in particular, I remember even reaching out to you after that one, that literally deals with how does it interact with the audience, but you pull it from this theater perspective, and or Norse mythology with the God of War one, and the religious side and Ocarina of Time. So you're pulling in context from the world as well and framing it in, I think, a very interesting way it makes me look at things differently. And then your voice, obviously, you're just the way you talk.
Sounds like Javed.
It sounds like Javed.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks for that. And I think it's when it comes to when it comes to defining what a good blood video is, I think I'm on that same journey, like to figure it out. And I think it mostly comes down to I've come to this realization recently that I think what I've been doing with every video is unpacking a part of myself or unpacking a part of my childhood to just try and identify what that is. So, for example, and this is why the research, what I was saying about the research process being so much more interesting, is because I myself am learning about myself and the human race and storytelling and how we interact with each other and what we see as important. What are the patterns in our species that we are drawn to? So for example, it really started with Crash Bandicoot, I think. One of my earlier Crash Bandicoot videos, where I really started to look at what do I feel about this game, and what does it mean to me? And I think too, like I've been trying to shed this ego skin of where I need to make it appear like I am intelligent, or that I am some kind of like thought leader. I feel like because I had that stance during my like mid-20s, trying to make a name for yourself, you kind of have to fake it till you make it. And I don't regret that a little bit. Like, I don't regret that too much, but I'm glad that I'm through that now, where I don't care so much about like what people think of me. I just want to try and put my best foot forward. But yeah, back then it was really trying to craft things in a way that made me look intelligent. But then as I kind of worked through that a little bit, and I was looking at Zelda, I got really drawn to challenging myself. Is like, okay, how do I move an audience? What does a story or like a video need, where I can take an audience on a journey? And I think I started to be more interested in that part of storytelling. And so I think it's hard to pin Good Blood down when it has shifted and moved so much over the last 10 years of like the crafts I'm using to build something. But I would say definitely now what gets me more excited is like a really interesting unexplored idea, and then how to craft that in a really engaging, interesting way. And if it has those components, then I'm happy.
it sounds like you're driven by curiosity, right? I think that's like the key thing in research is, I mean, you could just look up X thing on Wikipedia and just stop there. But you actually wrote, I remember you wrote this in your behind the scenes little post about the question no one asked Shigeru Miyamoto at the top. It just came to me. If you're reading this, then you're probably someone who likes behind the scenes content. Welcome. You're just like me. And that, hello, that's me. I write these same sort of posts for each one of my bigger videos or projects. Like, I love the providing some form of context for how things were made. And I feel like it's good to also reflect back on your own creative process, and then you carry that stuff forward and learn from your mistakes or anything like that. But when, I don't know what, I guess it's hard to pin down. I guess the answer is just curiosity to answer my question, but it's just like, how do you sit there and you're reading stuff? Let's use Metal Gear. You did Metal Gear Legend, and it was like a 13-14 minute video about some of the historical context surrounding the Metal Gear series, like the real world history. Now you're doing a Metal Gear Untold, which from the trailer sounds more focused on Kojima. I imagine there's some sort of crossover here of like you were in the pool of Metal Gear research, and then there was more to tell there. Clearly you're making a video about it. So how does that, I don't know, how do you grab onto that? What keeps you there? What pulls you into that?
Yeah, that's cool. One of the and this still kind of connects to the point that I was talking about before, was what interests me. When I first started making YouTube stuff for The Escapist and Second Wind, we tried out what it would look like making faster, smaller content. So when Second Wind started up, every 2 weeks I tried to come out with a new Good Blood video for that channel. What I found, I appreciated that time. That was really, really difficult for me to research, write, produce, animate, edit, do the voiceover for a video all by myself in 2 weeks, and also hit that quality and that thought-provokingness of what I want to do was such a punish. It was days and nights nonstop for like 2 months. But I ended up coming to the team and saying, hey guys, I can't keep this up. I'm actually not interested. And this was a realization for me, was I'm not interested in just creating content for the sake of like just putting something out. Where my heart is and where I want to spend my time is creating good stuff.
Yeah.
creating work, creating stories where we can reflect a little bit. We're pushing the envelope. We're planting new seeds in the minds of audiences. We're looking at the human condition. We're exploring patterns and mythologies and stories, and we're learning about ourselves as a species through this stuff. And I think we can do that through games as well, contrary to popular belief. And so that was, out of that conversation with the team, was me saying, hey, I actually love like developing experiences more than just content. And they were like, yeah, cool. Well, do you want to do like the Metal Gear stuff again? I was like, yeah, sick. So I've been on this for the last couple of months, and it's yeah, and it took everything that I had researched before and everything I had uncovered about Metal Gear and looking at Kojima and more about his story. And this is the thing too, like the more you dig into it and the more, research that you do, the more little nuggets you find. You start to see the patterns. And that's something I'm especially interested in is other creatives, directors, and seeing their creative journey. And you could probably relate, Mac, but like as a videographer and a creator yourself, you can see creators in a different way than I think some other audience groups can. As far as I know, the struggles that you would be going through to write and develop a story with a through line, from cutscenes to dialogue to action to whatever. That stuff really interests me. So all to say that now this next video that I've been working on Metal Gear is like definitely my biggest video. It's almost an hour of just really taking a tour through Kojima's work and exploring his trauma and how he poured his trauma into his stories. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. But yeah, it was definitely like a journey, realizing like what I actually appreciate about creating stuff.
I feel like every project has that in some way of like, sometimes it starts out as like, oh, this would be an interesting thing. Let's dig into it. And then you start digging and you just kind of keep shoveling things out and you're like, oh, and then there's, like you said, a nugget or a treasure down there that you never knew was going to be there to begin with. And that's where your story or the thing you want to share comes from. It's like, oh, can you believe that this was out here this whole time and no one knew?
Yeah.
Or no one talked about it?
Man, that gets me going. I think uncovering or like bringing to the audience some new thought, some new thing, or maybe expanding on an idea. So even with my latest Shigeru Miyamoto video, there's one little nugget that's been there for 40 years that I feel like no one, at least I haven't seen anyone really dig into to the depth that I would feel satisfied researching. And so I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna do it. So then but man, like that too was like a punish to research, because it's Shigeru Miyamoto and Hideo Kojima. All the good stuff is in Japanese.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'll find something. Usually my process is like I'll find like an interview, or I'll even order a magazine, not knowing if there's good stuff in there. I'll get the magazine and take some screenshots, do like a Google Translate and see if there's anything interesting. And then I'll get it properly translated from some friends that I have. And in the end, there might not even be anything to use. Like it's just that process over and over.
There's like a kind of a high-low, like a thrill. I mean, we talked about this last time, like the thrill of the hunt. It's like, will this be the piece? And I mean, it's kind of like Outer Wilds. It's like, well, is going here going to bring information forward to continue solving puzzles? The highs, the lows. It all comes back to Outer Wilds, I guess. I'm a little curious about the decision or the mentality behind branding it as Good Blood everywhere it's gone. Like at The Escapist, the little Good Blood, what is the little character there? He looks like a little forest creature of something.
Yeah, I think I just call him like a forest sprite.
Okay,
like
a forest sprite.
Something that feels mythological, mystical, magical. Yeah.
So, his little swirl pop up, and the same thing over on Second Wind. Like, it's not just an Escapist or Second Wind product. It is Good Blood, like stamped. Well,
yeah.
What's the decision there? But then Hyrule Journals is Hyrule Journals, but that's, as you put it, a gift to the Zelda community. So, like, what's the thought behind that?
Yeah, that was a challenge, because I feel so close to Good Blood that I don't want to just, for lack of a better word, like whore the name out, to just for the sake of it might get clicks or something. So it was agreed to make it Good Blood, and I think on their end, when they first hired me, was, well, let's hire Good Blood and have the Good Blood name on some of our content to draw more eyes to the channel, right? But then part of the conversation we had, even when I was making that short form content really quickly, was feeling really unsatisfied and really not wanting to put my brand on it because I wasn't satisfied with it. So part of the conversation, I was like, hey, can I not put my Good Blood branding on this? Can we change the name to something else? Originally, I had like maybe Storycraft or something. I even did some more branding for this new name, just because I wasn't satisfied. But we ended up going with like, okay, let's just do some long form content instead.
Yeah.
So I feel a lot better about what I've been producing, even though it's such a big project. I feel a lot better about bringing this kind of experience to audiences, rather than just like I kind of put it like I don't want to make junk food. I want to make like a really good meal. I don't want to just like be giving people fries, and even though it's delicious for in the moment.
Yeah, sometimes fries are delicious.
Nothing against fries, but like I want to make, I've been spending so many years trying to perfect these meals, these working with these ingredients to create a delicious meal that people will remember. I don't want to just jump then to making fast junk food stuff out of packets content. So I feel really good about this next one. It's really long, really thought-provoking. Hopefully, and that's the other thing about YouTube is like hopefully it clicks. Hopefully it gets seen. Otherwise, it's like 4 months for no reason for a delicious meal that no one tastes.
Yeah, right. That's actually what's your perspective on like the sheer volume over at Second Wind? Like they're cranking out stuff every day. It seems. Yeah. And so like things just naturally get pushed down, and you're of course in the YouTube space playing with that algorithm. I'm sure the Metal Gear video will pop on some level. It's Metal Gear, and it is you, quite frankly. Like you have a reputation of this bar of quality and things. So like I'm sure it will resonate on a level, but like it will get pushed down, in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How do you? The meal gets pushed down. I don't know how do.
Yeah. No,
what does that feel
exactly
like? I don't.
Yeah. I think it is hard, especially when, say, for my own channel, I'll create a video and it'll be at the top of the list for 2 years. Until I make the next one. But even then, it's then second in line. And I think like over on my channel is like hopefully what people are getting are just the meals, the delicious, tasty chef meals. And I think Second Wind too. Dude, there are some really good things about what Second Wind is doing. I think there's it feels like such a community over there, and I think community is the point. And so you've got community, you've got patrons who have access to special content, and then you've just got daily videos coming out, whether it's a review, whether it's Yahtzee doing his thing. But I feel like it's just keeping people in the house. Mm-hmm. Keeping everyone in the house, where conversations are still going. Everyone's having drinks in the corner. We're playing pool over at the pool table. It feels like actually, I think something we did talk about at Second Wind when I was asking questions was like, I think it is supposed to feel like a pub. It's supposed to feel like the place you come to for a drink that feels like your second home. That feels like a safe place. And so I think that's what Second Wind is. It's more of a community-driven thing rather than a specific creator driven thing, which then kind of brings up the friction where I come in, where my stuff is very creator heavy, where it's just me, one person, creating a really big thing to bring to the pub. And sometimes I feel like there's some friction there that doesn't quite work. But I like that we're experimenting. I like that there's like an experimental thing about it. It's like, is this going to work? Plus, like, maybe it's fun. Everyone in the pub, every 2 months, some big random dinosaur smashes through the building. And that's kind of interesting. And everyone talks about it for the next couple of weeks. Maybe that's what Good Blood is, the big dinosaur with these big 50-hour-long videos in a sea of 5 to 10 minute content. Yeah, so you've touched on something real there. Like there is definitely a friction that I've been trying to figure out. Where do I fit into the grand scheme of things? Yeah.
I was just watching. I don't know if you're familiar with this. His name's Matt, but his channel's name is I Finished a Video Game, and he does these up to 8 hour. I mean, these are like 4 to 8 hour retrospectives of a series, and he will play every video game in a series. He just finished one on X-Men, all these X-Men games, and it's great. You know, 6 hours or whatever. That's like my cooking dinner companion, you know. But he just talked about, he also does these like post-release deep dive videos and just kind of like digest the whole process. But he talked about how he's like, and he's been fighting cancer, so like that was also a part of it. But he has these huge gaps between his videos, and the algorithm has like, you know, doesn't like that, so to speak. And so he's trying to figure out how he can put out shorter things, shorter being an hour or two for him, that still has the I finished a video game quality, but is engaging and keeps the consistency up. And so consistency is not a problem at Second Wind in the sense of just output, but it's he's trying to figure out how do I don't know, he's like the inverse of what you were doing. You were putting out more rapid Good Blood videos, but that didn't feel, they were the French fries. And he's like, I need to put some fries out a little bit. It feels like this tension between a creative individual who wants to make something that they put everything into, and I also gotta get paid type. You know, for him, that's his job, and obviously for you as well, this is your type of job. So that's a struggle, man. I don't know, as a creative, I don't even know if there's a question there. That's tough.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I reckon that's a problem that we've been dealing with for centuries. Mm-hmm. And how does an artist get paid?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to call myself an artist. That's for someone else to do. But
I'll call you an artist. There you go.
but I think when you're trying to create, at least a creative person, I feel like that's always been the struggle. So inside Second Wind, as I've been building out this longer video, I still do editing and I've done all their branding. So like there are other things that I contribute to, but it is hard though. And I think as someone who is such a people pleaser, I do worry about what it looks like from the other side of this big production that I'm doing, where I'll just go hide in my hole for a week or two with no report, because I'm working so hard on this thing. I'm doing the voiceover and the editing and the animation and the design, and I start to feel guilty about not looking like I'm working on anything, especially because we're a team, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other tension part of it. But I do pop out and I'll do design work and I'm doing all that stuff for them. So it does balance out, but there definitely is that feeling of like I'm getting paid, but no one's heard anything from me for a week or two. So it's hard. And I think too that the landscape's changing, where to be on one hand, you can be a creator full time now. You know, like with the introduction of the internet and social media, there are creatives that are doing this full time. Like, and they're making a living from this. The other side of it are the creators who don't want to, for lack of a better word, sell out and be a content creator. They just want to be an artist. You know, and I think that's a tension we're dealing with now, where okay, to be a successful artist, you kind of need to be a content creator as well. You need to be doing your daily posts and your updates and have a social media presence and all that stuff. I hate that stuff.
Me too.
That's just not me as a person. I really suck at it. I feel like it lessens the integrity of what I am creating. And again, it's fast food. It's fast food versus the chef's meal. It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah. I think one day I woke up and realized like all the opinions and things that I had tweeted out over the years, I was like, that is hundreds of longer, richer, more thought out blog posts. And I was just giving that away for free, so to speak, or trying to pursue some sort of social media presence to, like, boost a number here or put raise a podcast subscription up there. I've never made a cent. Well, technically, I think earlier in YouTube I have like $70, but at the time Google only paid out every 100, so I like never actually got paid out. But I've never made a cent, this type of stuff, and it's and but the social media of like, I'm off Twitter in that sense of like I'm not out there posting. I'm not scrolling anymore. That was a early having a
cool,
kid
man.
decision. Was like, I don't want her to grow up with me doing, scrolling all the time. But it's that dopamine hit in our brains, and it's
Yeah.
But I don't like the social media or the YouTube shorts, like, to push out. I don't know. It's too much for me.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is, my own feelings on this, and something that I've been thinking about and might be still a bit underdeveloped, but I feel like when it comes to knowledge, we have never been as knowledgeable as we are now when it comes to knowing about skills, other cultures, people's problems, whatever. We're knowledged up, but I think we might be the least wise when it comes to having real experiences, reflecting on things, reflecting on an experience where we learn from that, or reflecting on something that someone has told us, which was what used to happen 20 years ago. Like, the only knowledge that we had was through the people around us, right? Before the internet came and we could look up the answers to every question imaginable. And so when I'm scrolling, I feel like I'm getting more knowledge, but not more wise.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel very incomplete. I feel very dissatisfied with my scrolling, because it's just brain rot. Knowledge that I don't need. Like, I don't need to know about this guy's, like, gross fungus toenail, or like, I don't know, just stuff I don't need to know about. Like, I think on one hand, it's good to be more knowledgeable about the world. And I think one of the good things about it is, like, we're becoming, hopefully, more tolerant because we're seeing more people's experiences of what it's like to live as them. That's good. But we're not experiencing them. We're not having real conversations in real life with those people. So I'm diverging a bit here, but all to say, like, when it comes to social media, going off what you said, like, I feel less satisfied now because I see the hole that I'm left with of, like, I'm just no more wiser. I'm no more better as a human being.
Yeah, it's not fun when you sit and think about it. But sometimes, I guess, if you just sit there and eat the fries and don't think about what's in them, maybe you'll walk away with something. I don't know. To kind of like key in on the production thing, one of the parts of your projects I find so interesting is how long this research process and production cycle takes. You, I think, talked about the Hakoniwa video taking a couple years. I think it even was originally a High Roll Journals video before it elevated to Good Blood main channel status. I don't know how long Ocarina of God of War was. Like, they're long production cycles is my point. How do you stay engaged with that? Like, at some point you have to cut off the research. You got to write, edit, and produce the whole thing. How do you stay engaged over these long periods of time?
Oh, dude, your questions are so good. Because they're exactly the things that I've been trying to work out as well. How do I stay engaged? You know what it is? It's I need to honor the past version of myself that poured blood and sweat out for this video. So, like, I'll get to say, like, the research, and that part's really exciting, the research and the writing, and I'll have a script that's like 90% done. I'll start the production, which isn't as interesting, because it definitely gets to the point where I've been listening to, because I do the voiceover, I'll be listening to myself for months. You know, like I'm listening to the same sentence for months as I try and craft this full thing. And I think the only way that I can get to the end is being like, I can't trip at the finish line now. Like I need to just brute force this last bit, or like, and so it is painful. There's a painful part to it, and especially my brain, as I grow and I learn more about myself, I become way more detached when I just feel like I don't believe in something, or I'm just not interested. And after the research and the writing process, I'm not that interested anymore. I've done the learning. I've sucked out all I can from this thing, from all the research and like trying to find my thesis. I've done the part that I kind of set out to do, but now to make it all worth it, and also the desire to share it with people, I need to now make a video about it. And now I need to record my voiceover. I need to start collecting footage and begin the design process. And so like, it definitely gets to the point where it's like the only thing pushing me through is trying to honor past Javed's hard work.
I like that. I've never thought of past me like that before, because I'll get the same way where it's like the research part is the fun part, but then you have to make the thing, and sometimes that's not fun. And like I have what is this? I guess back in 2020, yeah, right before Last of Us Part 2 came out, I wrote this huge history basically on the game's development. It's basically the Naughty Dog's history during the PS4. So like their whole chronicle, the whole thing. Some like 18,000 words. And I probably should have made it a video, because I feel like you can't get people to read 18,000 words, but you can probably get them to watch a hour and a half YouTube video. But I've thought about, I poured a lot into that. And then obviously that was before the game came out, right? And so since Part 2 came out, a lot has happened, both at the studio, the franchise, and then just socially with the game as well, as you've talked about. And sometimes I think like I need to go back and apply what I've learned and observed now to go. But then I think about going back into that. I'm like, that doesn't sound fun.
Yeah.
But I did do the work. There's more research work, which would be fun. But it's the thinking of doing it all again. But maybe I need to honor past Max more than think about what would be comfortable here now, or just sitting on it. There's a lot.
Yeah, and it's probably a balance of like the only way my latest the question no one asks Miyamoto video, the only reason that came out was I really did believe what I was presenting was new. I looking at my Google Docs, I've got a few hundred half-written things there. Like just little ideas or little bits that I think are interesting, and almost completely finished essays, but the content, the thing I'm talking about, isn't as exciting. And so I think it's that a little bit of a balance between I still believe in what I'm saying and also honoring all the hard work that I've done. I think if it has those two components, then it's worth pursuing.
Mm-hmm. I like that. That's a good way to think about it. You had a stream recently, which I watched. I went back and watched the replay. I couldn't catch it at the time. It was live, but you were doing a little bit of your title intro. I think it's the title intro. It's early on in the video for the Metal Gear one, and you talked about how you at least said at one point, I guess around 18 minutes and 17 seconds, according to my notes, you said, "My joy and my priority is good production," and like you hold on to those details in your. I mean, throughout that particular stream, you're like lining things up with this snake graphic you have and the smoke, which did look really good, by the way. The smoke was pretty dope. What is it about those details and that good production that, like, even though the production may not be where you're pulling out, it's not as thrilling as the research part, but you still are wholly dedicated to delivering like a very polished product. what what is it about those details that like you hold on to and compels you?
I think big picture, it's what I think is memorable, and I think what the kind of content that stays with people is two things: a story and artistic integrity. And that's kind of, again, I'm being throwing a lot of kind of new ideas that I myself have been having at you. But another recent concept that's been in my mind is, I think we are drawn to artistic integrity, where clearly there's been some thought put into this. And so if there's thought put into this, I'm more likely to trust this story. I think I'm more likely to trust where the creator wants to go with this. And I think there's something there around, again, it's like going back to our metaphor of the chef's meal. It's like, what does it look like on the plate? It could taste freaking delicious, like the best thing you've ever had. But if it looks like shit, you're not going to want to eat it. And so I think, again, it's just honoring the journey and honoring the meal, presenting it visually as something that looks appealing and something that might, the audience or the person tasting it might think about later in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah, that's really it. So I think I enjoy that part of production, as well as like, what's something that's visually interesting and maybe unique to look at, something that when people think of that video, they're going to think of that visual, and something that feels trustworthy.
What is the You've talked about it throughout this episode. You know, you're the guy, you're writing, you're producing, you're designing, you're editing, one man show ostensibly. The design part, it's like I think that there's a saying that's roughly like this, like, you know, people don't like have good design until they go out and learn about good design. Like the hotel we just stayed at, for example. I walked in and the first thing I noticed was that the wallpaper didn't line up, like they just mismatched wallpaper. And then the bedside lamps, there was no switch anywhere. I could not find a switch. And then as we're checking out, like we're leaving, I like put my hand on it to unplug, because it had a USB port, unplug a cable. And when I touched the base, the light turned on. Because it was like somehow touch sensitive. I was supposed to infer that. Like, that's bad design. Now, in a video, it's, you know, you could do Windows Movie Maker style wipes or whatever, and maybe if you use those effectively, it can look good. I mean, they're Windows Movie Maker wipes for a reason. Star Wars uses them. Where do you draw, I guess, design? It's just years of learning and observing design and then what to apply. It's just, I guess it's just you acquire it over the years, right?
Yeah. This might be a great way to bring things full circle a little bit, talking about social media. Was I follow a lot of artists. Mm-hmm. So if you looked at what a Javed algorithm looks like, it's skateboarding and like design, or like or little animations, After Effects, whatever. And so I think I bookmarked them. And so I think from a knowledge point, I have been collecting quite a lot. But where it changes is when I, again, do the wisdom thing, where then I try to apply it to what I've learned to something. And that's where the real wisdom is. Because some things just don't work. Like these two cool ideas that I saw, they don't work together. And so I think it has been just years of just trial and error. Like I'm completely self-taught, which I think has slowed me down to some degree. But I think too, and I was reading this book. What was it? It was the author of Moby Dick. He, hang on, Herman Melville, the author of Moby Dick. I was reading the first like kind of introduction to his work, and I connected so much with his journey because he dropped out of school really early, and he never went to university. He was a sailor, but he just started writing his experiences being a sailor, and they turned into novels. And the first few were okay because they were like really sexy novels, and everyone wanted to read about his like sexual escapades, and so they sold really well. But then he read Shakespeare, and he was like, "Holy shit, this is friggin' amazing!" Like, I can't believe I've never discovered Shakespeare before. And that really impacted his work and his way of viewing the world and writing. And so I think it just came down to experience. But one thing that I loved about the writer's description of Herman Melville's journey was he studied at the Universe of Life. And I was like, oh, I love that. Like, and I think that's been my journey too. Like, I've just been, I sometimes I think it's good if you're not trained, if you don't have someone training you in the ways of design, because then I think sometimes you're locked to the skills that you got passed down to you. But if you teach yourself, there are no boundaries. There's no rule sets in place. And so I think that's been really good for my journey, even though it's been slower, is to try all these different things. And I still don't think I'm very good, but like, I think I'm getting there.
Javed, you're very good. I mean, to more full circle stuff, like obviously your work has inspired mine on some level. I've made 3 video essays is what you'd call them this year. The goal was just to make one. I've made 3 now. But the first one, I definitely wanted like an homage. And I talked about basically my guide writing work. And I've worked for IGN on guides and stuff, which is talk about the churn of content, right? Like it's gotta be up. But I did some work on Breath of the Wild, and before the internet figured out what the reward was for collecting 900 Korok seeds, I was assigned to like start and categorizing the hunt. And so I wanted to basically show that journey of 100, 150 Korok seeds before I got reassigned to something else. And like in the game, you could do the time lapse. I'm like, that's whatever. It's cool, but it's not. I was like, how do I make this more visually interesting and bring it into the real world? And I grabbed my map from the guide, like the whole map of Hyrule, and it actually has marked on it the Korok seeds. And so I watched my replay. I was like, this is the time. This is where I was. And then I bought little posty stick-it notes, little arrows, and I did an over-the-head table shot. Very, very Javed. It was like, it's not as a pretty a table, but it'll work. and then I time-lapsed myself sticking all 100 or whatever things and fit that in where it needed to be in the video. So, like, that was just, I don't know, what your videos with the table, whatever, that's just been sitting in the back of my mind, right? Like, that's something I've grabbed to, and it's like, how do I incorporate something like that? So, more lessons from the University of Life, as it were, in video making. But I don't use After Effects. I haven't used After Effects in a long time, so I'm not going to be making any 3D snakes anytime soon.
Yeah, right. Dude, I loved your map video.
Yeah?
It was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was wonderful. It really one of my things, again going back to like an unfinished idea, was I got about halfway through doing a playthrough of Tears of the Kingdom where I didn't look at the map and I couldn't fast travel. So it was just all about learning the world, but I had a physical map and I would write physically the locations, the names of these places. And I loved it, man. I loved that journey when I was doing it because I saw so many new things compared to my previous playthrough where I was just fast traveling, zipping around the world. And I remember more. And I think there's something to do with memory as far as when you're forced. I won't diverge too much, but like I won't go into memory. My desire for maps, like I love collecting video game maps, and then you shared that video with me of your map making. I was like, I felt a bit of jealousy because I was like, I want to make this thing. Like, I want to do a video about maps and like video game maps and the importance of physical maps and stuff, and the suggestion of the adventure, all that stuff. So man, I loved it. I love that video.
Maps are the best. Just, I actually got to a point trying to solve a puzzle in Outer Wilds. I was like, I have to recreate their little mind map. I'm like, I have to write it down myself because I just can't figure this piece out.
Right.
I don't think it led to a solution, but I at least felt a little better. I was like, at least I'm doing something. I love that kind of stuff. And doing guide work, you're writing notes and maps and stuff down all the time. You're thinking about a game way differently than you just sit down.
So you're pretty much a cartographer.
Essentially, yeah. Especially now.
That's awesome.
I think IGN has like full interactive maps now. It's truly an online thing. I want to do one more question, I think, before we wrap up. And I guess it kind of ties in. Maybe it's a little University of Life kind of stuff. Like you said before, the Good Blood stuff isn't the only thing you're doing over at Second Wind. You're editing other things for them or participating in like more group videos or things like that, what have you. But recently you guys have done a series called The Archive. It's Marty Sleva and you, as far as I can tell. Is that the team there for The Archive? Great videos.
Yeah.
They're totally styled like those old VHS tapes, deep dives, old video game type stuff. What are you pulling in from those into Good Blood? Because obviously, like, you're doing the editing production side of thing. Marty, I believe, is doing the writing and obviously the narration and stuff. What do you get out of that type of project where it is kind of just the production side of things? But I guess you're learning, right? Whatever Marty's bringing to the table, which is interesting so far. And then obviously the style. Like, you're capturing an era of like VHS tape, MTV style stuff. What's that like for you?
Yeah, that's really fun. So that show is a retro show. It's dedicated to exploring some retro games that might not be as appreciated. And so the idea for the design was to pull from, and I started doing some research and looking at old videos from like old G4, like old broadcast shows, and really trying to examine the speed and the pacing and how they would cut things. So that was fun to research that and pull from that a little bit. I think from what I get out of it, it's obviously the knowledge of these games that I knew nothing about that Marty is writing about. Like I'd heard of Mega Man Legends, but I didn't know what it was. And then he did these deep dives into the production surrounding that stuff. I'm not sure if I take anything away as far as production. I think I'm just kind of pouring what I already know into that show, just in a different style, trying to emulate something that has come before, which is kind of fun because it's fun doing that because there's so many references, and so you don't have to just come up with something from scratch. There are so many VODs of G4 and Electronic Playground, all that stuff online that you can just watch and get a vibe for. So yeah, but it's good fun. Like that they feel like holidays a little bit, just because it's just I don't have to do the narration, I don't have to do the writing, I just do the production stuff. It's really fun.
They are fun videos. I enjoy watching them so far. I look forward to future ones should they be there. They're cool things, man. Well, thank you so much, Javed. I think that'll do it for us today. But thanks for coming back to the show. This has been a lot of fun to like dig into the psyche of the creative mind and figure this all out, because it's an eternal struggle, I suppose. We're just cursed. Creatives are cursed. I suppose.
It's true. Yeah. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Always love coming on.
Yeah, this is a blast. Folks can find you online. Are you still on Twitter? Is Twitter still? Do people still love Twitter?
Twitter. Yeah. / Javed Sterritt, and then Good Blood on YouTube, and Second Wind stuff over there.
All right, there will be links to all of that, and the Patreons for all of those as well down in the show notes. If you'd like to see the links about anything we talked about, you can check out your show notes in your podcast player, or head over to maxfrequency.net /MFP-43. Kind of rhymes. As for me, you can check out all my writing over at maxfrequency.net or here in the podcast feed. You got the other show, Chapter Select, the retrospective podcast that bounces back and forth between a series exploring its evolution, design, and legacy, and over on YouTube, where I have some videos every now and then going up all the time. Who knows, whatever. You can check that out too. But thank you all so much for listening. Until next time, adios.